Okay, let's think about this for a second. What if politics wasn't about winning a war, but about running a family? It sounds kind of wild, right? But today, we're diving into a really unique political idea from the Jungbub 2013 source that sees the whole system through this lens. Cooperation, specific roles, just like a family.
You see it everywhere, don't you? Political parties are constantly at each other's throats, society feels totally divided, and everyone's shouting for some kind of massive change. It's so easy to think, wow, the system is just broken. But what if that's not it? This philosophy we're looking at today asks a really different question. What if the system itself is fine, but the people in it have just forgotten what they're supposed to be doing?
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the diagnosis of the problem itself. Then, we'll get into the roles of intellectuals and political parties using that wild family metaphor. After that, we'll see why new parties just don't seem to work in this model. And, to wrap it all up, we'll talk about where the people's real power lies. Let's get into it.
All right, first up, let's tackle this diagnosis for all the conflict we see in politics. And believe me, it's probably not what you're expecting.
You see, from this point of view, all that political fighting we're used to, it's not a sign the whole system's busted. It's actually way simpler than that. It's just a big misunderstanding of roles. The idea is that the opposition party's job isn't to tear down the government to take its place. Their real job is to support and improve it. The fighting only starts when personal ambition gets in the way of that duty.
And this framework points to one group in particular that often gets its role mixed up: the intellectuals.
Now this is where it gets really specific. Check out this proposed ratio, a 70-30 split. The argument here is that a whopping 70% of people in politics should be practitioners, folks with actual, hands-on, real-world experience. And academics, the professors, the thinkers, they should be in a supporting role, making up no more than 30%. The thinking is, if you get that balance wrong, you end up with a government that's great on theory, but can't actually get anything done.
Okay, so all of this leads us to the absolute heart of this philosophy. It's a total paradigm shift in how we're supposed to think about politics. So I want you to completely forget the idea of politics as a war for power. Instead, this philosophy asks you to see the entire country as one big family, one household. And in this house, the goal isn't for one person to win. The goal is the well-being of the whole family, which is the nation. And just like any family, everyone has a very specific job to do. So in this family model, the party that's in power, they're not some kind of king or conqueror. They're the older brother. They're the one with the experience, the resources, and the responsibility to lead the family right now.
And, you guessed it, that makes the opposition party the younger brother. Now, what's a younger brother's job? It's not to pick fights with the older brother just to take his spot. No, it's to learn, to help out, and to grow up so that one day they'll be ready to lead too.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into this whole older brother, younger brother dynamic. What are their actual jobs?
This lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have the older brother, the ruling party. They've already got the power, the money, the resources to run the country. They lead. But the younger brother, the opposition, has a totally different set of tasks. Their job is to study politics, to support the older brother's work from the sidelines, and, hey, when they see a mistake, to point it out, but constructively. And by doing that, they slowly earn the people's trust and get strong enough to maybe lead one day themselves.
And this quote from the source really nails the idea down. There's no younger brother as good as the older brother. It's all about a natural hierarchy based on experience. The older brother has been there, done that, they have practical knowledge the younger brother just, doesn't have yet. So trying to grab power before you're ready, it's not just a bad idea. It actually hurts the entire family, the entire nation.
But, and this is super important, this isn't a life sentence. The younger brother isn't stuck there forever. There's a clear 5-step path for them to grow. And it's really a path of maturing, right? You study, you support, you offer good corrections, you earn trust, and then naturally you grow into that older brother role yourself. It's earned, not taken. So, this family model seems pretty neat with its two brothers, but it begs the question, what happens when someone else, like a new third party, tries to join the family dinner? Well, the analogy used here is pretty striking. Think of the established parties as these giant boulders. They're massive, they're heavy, they're deeply rooted with history and money and name recognition. A brand new party? It's like a tiny pebble. And what happens when you throw a pebble at a boulder? Not much, you're just not going to break it.
And that's because, in this view, starting a new party isn't really seen as an act of service to the nation. It's seen as an act of personal ambition. It just ends up wasting a ton of national energy and resources. It creates even more division, and in the end, it just can't compete with the sheer strength of those existing boulders. A new party might make a little noise, maybe leave a tiny scratch, but it's never going to change the fundamental landscape.
All right, so we've talked about the older brother and the younger brother, but what about the rest of the family? What is the role for the public in all of this? The answer is, well, it's probably not what you're thinking.
You know, when things get messy in politics, what's our first instinct? To get out there, to protest, to get loud, right? To make our voices heard. But this framework, it suggests something completely different. The advice is simple. Stay calm. Seriously, that's it. The argument is that the most dangerous thing in any political crisis is when the public gets all riled up. Because when the people themselves become agitated and start to move, the entire nation gets shaken to its core. So, in this view, the real strength of the people isn't in their shouting, it's in their stability. Think about it like this. All that public energy, the anger, the passion, the support, it's described as fuel. And when we, the citizens, give that fuel to politicians who are just driven by their own ambition, we're not actually powering progress for the country, we're just fueling that one person's race for power. And that only leads to more chaos and more division.
And that brings us to the most critical point of all. The nation belongs to the people, not to the politicians. So our ultimate job is to protect it. And according to this philosophy, protecting it means refusing to be the fuel for their fires. It means being that calm, stable foundation and letting the brothers figure out their roles. Which leaves us with a really challenging thought, doesn't it? In a world that tells us constantly to be active, to protest, to engage, what if the most powerful thing we can do is to consciously choose not to?